We know that there are over 2 million women, college-aged, who find themselves in an unexpected pregnancy. Unfortunately, many college students end their pregnancy because they don't have the support of friends or family members. And they don't have what we provide, two trained female volunteers to walk alongside them. While there are a lot of other resources for women in unplanned pregnancies, we're unique because we focus solely on the college campus, and we provide that one-on-one support so they don't have to figure out where they need to go and what they need to do because they're scared and they've never been through this before, but we have. So we know where to take them. We know the resources that are available to them, and so we want to provide that to them.
That was like probably one of the worst days ever. You're living your normal life, right? And then all of a sudden, you walk into a building, and in the span of an hour, everything changes. Like most college freshmen, I was searching for friends, a sense of belonging, and to enjoy the experience of living in a new place. I joined a sorority, made lots of new friends, and explored my college town. Every Friday was pretty much the same. My friends and I would gather in one of our dorms, do our makeup, get dressed, listen to music, dance, and take pictures until it was time to go out. But one Friday night was very different. Once we got to a party, I grabbed a drink. After that, I have absolutely no memory of what occurred for the rest of the night. Months later, my roommate asked me if there was a chance I could be pregnant. I was offended at first, and I told her it wasn't even a possibility. I thought about it for the rest of the day and realized that maybe I was. I went to my roommate's bedroom and said, "What if I am?" My roommate was in a Bible study with a woman named Sabrina.
I want to say I was at dinner, maybe with my husband or something, and I get a call from this student who had asked her roommate, Emily, if she was pregnant, and she's like, hey, we need to go get a pregnancy test, essentially. And so I get in my car, kick my husband out of my house, and I drive over there, and I pick them both up, and we drive to Safeway, and I just run in. I leave the car running with the girls in the back and just buy a pregnancy test.
When I went to take the test at Sabrina's apartment, I couldn't fathom the fact that it might be positive.
And we were all waiting together. And so I was like, okay, I'll go read it for you. And I went in the bathroom and it was positive.
Few people can understand the overwhelming rush of fear, panic, and stress that flood over you when you find out you're unexpectedly pregnant. I was terrified. I had no idea what to do, where to go, or who to talk to.
I remember none of us really knew what to say, me and her friend. And we just kept over and over again, you don't have to do this alone. We will be with you every single step of the way. We will accompany you in this. And I'm listen, I worked at this place called Bella, and I told her, I sat there and I was listen, if my sister was in this situation, if my best friend was in this situation, if my daughter was in this situation, if anyone I loved and cared about was in this situation, this is where I would take them. I was I would take them to Bella.
Occasionally, we will find women come in who had no idea that they were pregnant. And I think that people wonder, is this common? Does it happen very often? It's not super common that somebody comes in really far along and is really pregnant and they really didn't know. But occasionally it will. And when we do see it, it generally, from my experience over the last 10 years of doing this, is related to some kind of trauma.
At my appointment, I was still in shock and couldn't quite put all of the pieces of the puzzle together yet. After the ultrasound, they told me I was 37 weeks pregnant. I asked what month was 37 weeks ago. I realized that was exactly the time frame that I couldn't remember.
Abby comes and is like, hey, like Emily wants you to come back. So I like walk into the ultrasound room and Emily's like hysterical. And she tells me, you know, like I'm 8 months pregnant. And basically essentially tells me that she had not been sexually active 8 months ago.
I knew the gut feeling I had months ago was right. I had always known deep down that something bad had happened, but I never realized it was sexual assault. I had been drugged and raped. I knew I had to make a plan for me and a plan for this unborn baby. I knew I wasn't ready to be a mom.
I think that we all have had times in our lives where we had something happen that we just weren't planning on. I think that there is something unique about finding out that you're pregnant and not having planned that. That moment of seeing their baby on an ultrasound screen, like their world just stands still for a second. And it is the next moment, I think, that is probably more impactful. The next moment of saying, congratulations, you really are pregnant, and this really is a life, and we're gonna talk through the next steps. And what I have found is that next moment goes better when they're not alone.
One of Emily's concerns was, you know, I'm in school. Does this mean my life is over? She's thinking. And Abby just did this phenomenal job of being like, no. Just because you're 8 months pregnant right now, just because it's an insanely hard situation, does not mean that your hopes and dreams are over. And it does not mean that you have to walk this walk alone. And essentially pose this question of like, what if there's a big plan for this baby too?
When a woman comes in and they find out they're pregnant, all women have the same options. And those options are, one, to carry a pregnancy, and they can carry and parent the baby. A second option would be to carry the pregnancy and have an adoption. And then the third option, even at the latest of late, to the time it's time to deliver the baby, would be an abortion. It's important to know, even at the late end, whether it's 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, and something that I would explain to every woman who comes in at that point is no matter what, even if they choose an abortion at that time, they will be delivering a baby. So that baby may be no longer living, but they will still be delivering a baby.
I feel so much that the world only gives moms in Emily's position one option. You know, and that's just not the case. It's like there's 2 million couples that want to adopt, 2 million couples that are like desiring to grow their family and willing to take on any child, you know, like any child.
I knew that the best option for me was adoption, but I had no idea how to find a good family for this baby.
We were in the process of adopting a baby boy. And so we traveled to Arizona where he was going to be born. And while there, we experienced a failed adoption, a failed match, which basically means the parents decided to choose to parent, which is amazing if they can do that. And so with that, like our dream of us expecting to have a baby through adoption just kind of shattered. We had been building up, like after 2.5 years of infertility, a year trying to adopt, we were in Arizona, just like, where are we going to go next? And then 24 hours later after our failed adoption, I have a missed call.
Katie and Joe were the most beautiful couple. I stayed up all night thinking about what it would be like if I chose them. The little voice in my head kept telling me that they were meant to be the baby's family.
We were getting ready to call them and kind of be like, hey, and you're kind of like, what do you say when you call someone and you want to give them your baby, you know? And so Abby was there and we're like, Abby, like, what do we say? We don't know what to say to them. And she's like, maybe just call them and say, hey, I think I'm carrying your baby. So that's like what we did. We called them and we were like, hey, like, my name is so-and-so, I'm pregnant, and I think I might be pregnant with your baby.
When I was in the hospital being induced, I finally called them and left a voicemail and hoped that they would listen to it and call me back.
saw the missed call, listened to the voicemail, and I was like, oh my gosh, Joe, like we have to call her. So called her, chatted with her, and I just like time kind of stopped. Like I just, listening to her voice and just being like, oh my gosh, you're about to have this child. I can only imagine like the trauma and like everything you're feeling. And so chatted with her on the phone, and then basically I think the conversation ended of like, great, can you get to Denver?
When they called me back that evening, they were overjoyed that I had reached out to them, and they were already so excited about the idea of adopting this baby. At that point, I was certain I was making the right decision.
Their response wasn't like grasping for this baby or concern only for the baby. Like they were so gentle and loving to like Emily.
I could never shut up about it. They're like, Katie and Joe are just the most incredible people. Like, they are so kind, they are so loving, they're so accepting.
You know, after picking the family and talking to the family, Emily kind of started to come alive a little bit more. Before she had just seemed so sad, obviously, and just upset and scared, and that was still there. But there was this element of like, this can be redeeming. Emily never really, even knew if she would want to have kids one day. Never knew that she would, try and have a baby ever. And now she's, sitting in the hospital about to give birth.
Xavier's birth was probably one of the most terrifying days of my life. This was something I had no idea how to prepare for, and I was so scared. When Xavier was first born, I chose not to hold him or meet him after because I felt like it would be too emotionally taxing for me at the time.
The choice for adoption is a really brave and courageous choice.
We met with the adoption people a lot because I don't think people are aware of like all of the stuff you have to do to put a baby up for adoption, let alone doing that in like 48 hours. So, some of that was really hard in that Emily was having to kind of share the story over and over again and talk about all of these things that she herself was just barely processing.
As we've opened up our stories, there have been a lot of couples that have asked us to, meet with them, talk about our experience of adoption and different things like that. There are more and more couples that can only grow their family, if birth moms are, given the resources, and birth moms have the people in their lives to make that choice. Like, we need to provide resources to them. We need to put people in their lives that make that decision easier for them to do, that can guide them to that.
To make them feel less alone, and that they actually have a choice.
There are so many women on college campuses that just don't have the resources, and what would happen if there was just someone there for them. The Avi Project is going actually to the place where it is needed most.
If you Google abortion, Google unplanned pregnancy, whatever it is, and the first things that are coming up right now are local abortion clinics, Planned Parenthood, ordering Plan B, whatever it is. That is like the first thing that they're seeing. And they're like, oh great, there's my solution. And it's going to take resources and funding and time to where people are able to Google pregnancy, unplanned pregnancy, whatever it is, and resources are actually coming up to give them options, choices, like the Avi Project.
Without Emily, like, Xavier's not here.
Xavier is a miracle, his whole life and his whole story. He's a miracle. And we have since had the privilege to get to have a biological child, Cora. And just seeing the two of them together, he calls her his Cora girl, just the gift of siblings. Through infertility, like, our cries were like, why me? Like, why me? Why do I have to go through this? And then on the flip side, now having Xavier, through the gift of adoption, I'm like, why me? Like, why me do I get to experience this love and get to have him as my son?
About 2 years after he was born, I was doing well and finally felt like I would be ready to meet him if the opportunity ever arose. I let Katie and Joe know this.
We were like, yes, we would love to meet up with you. We can't wait for you to meet Xavier.
So when they were in town, they texted me and they asked if we could go meet up at a playground. So I drove down to meet them, and I brought Xavier this little stuffed dinosaur. And I didn't even know that he was so obsessed with dinosaurs. Xavier looked exactly how I did as a toddler, and he melted my heart.
Immediately, like, he runs up and gives her a hug. the beauty part of this story of just like the three of us all together, watching him run around, laughing, smiling.
He is the sweetest boy, and I still cannot believe how something so beautiful came from such a terrible situation. He was always and forever meant to be a part of Katie and Joe's family. I would just hope that anyone who finds themselves in a similar position to mine just knows that adoption is a really beautiful option and can bring light into so many different lives. And it's a decision that I'm really happy with, and I wouldn't change a thing.
The world around us is really loud, and everyone has an opinion. And just listening and to be a source of truth and just a presence is probably one of the biggest things that we can do. Somebody can be made whole by just not being alone in such a vulnerable moment. And I think that that is what the Avi Project does for women.
Sabrina is just the most awesome person I've ever met. Without hesitation, she jumped right into helping me. She didn't even know me. She'd met me like 3 times. It was just like really amazing to me how just willing she was to help and get to know me and advocate for me and just support me. Like, I was really scared to tell anybody. I mean, I'm still scared to tell people. That doesn't just go away. So it was really amazing to have somebody who felt like family. And I think that was really special.
People need to be loved. People need to be seen. They need to be known. It's scary. It is so hard. This decision, like, I think some people just think, like, just put it up for adoption. Yeah, but that in and of itself is a really hard thing. Being pregnant for 9 months is really hard. You know, reliving, whatever circumstances put you in the circumstance that you are in an unplanned pregnancy is really hard. The Avi Project offers them accompaniment to have someone to walk with. It's love put into action.
I think if there's someone out there who finds themselves in the same situation as me or a similar situation to me, I would just let them know that they're really brave and they're really, really strong. And they're gonna be okay. It might not feel like it, and it might take a long time, but they're gonna be okay.